We begin today the Gemara at the bottom of Daf Ein Chesam with Beis, the very last line. Zok the Gemara Toner Rabbanon. We learned in a Braise, Gonav, a person steals an animal, v'nosan la'acher, v'tovach, and he gives it to someone. So Rashi explains it doesn't mean over here that he's giving it to him as a gift. Rather, it means he's appointing someone as his shaliach to go and shecht it for him. Or v'nosan la'acher, he appoints someone, u'macha, go and sell this animal for me. Another case, Gona v'hiktish. A person stole this animal and then he is maktish it. Or another case, Gona v'hikif. He stole the animal and he sold it on credit. So he didn't get paid for it yet, but he sold it. Gona v'hechlif. He stole this animal and he exchanged it with another item, another form of a sale. Gona v'nosan b'matana. He stole the animal and granted it as a gift. So here it's talking about the gift. Gonav upara es chayvai. He stole the animal and he paid off a loan with this animal. Or bichayvai, the Bach says. Gonav upara be'akefai. Or he paid up what he owed, credit. He had a credit in a store and he used this animal to pay up the credit that he owned. Or gonav v'sholach sivloinis beveis chamav. He stole the animal and he used it to send it as a gift to his father-in-law's house, to his wife. That he's already married, already neshesish, and he sends her this gift. That was the seder, and they used to send these gifts. So mishalem tashlume arba v'chamisha. For all of these cases, he pays arba v'chamisha. So the Gemara is going to explain over here the chiddush in some of them. Let me just explain one thing over here. First of all, regarding the hikdish, Taisus over here brings, we learned this already before, that when you're makdish as a carbon, you don't pay dal v'hei. Here, Taisus says it's talking about that you makdish it to the bedek habayis, which is just for the funds of hektish to be used for the Beis Hamikdash b'chlal. That's what it's saying over here, that you would be chayav to pay. Another interesting thing that the Rishonim point out regarding the sivloinais is, the chiddush in this case is, you're sending it to your wife, she's already an Eishes Ish. As to say, there wasn't those times that there was the Edison, she's an Eishes Ish, and then she would live by her father, the person's in-laws, and get married, let's say, a year later. So he's sending the gift to his wife, which is really already an Eishes Ish. You may think this is not really a gift, that he's giving it to someone that's not him, because Kamashakani Isha Kana Baila she's really already an Eishes Ish. Nevertheless, the Braisa says you're still going to be chayiv to pay Dal V'hei. Okay, now the Gemara here will also focus on explaining what's the chiddush in this Braisa, focuses on other details. Let's see. My Kamash Malon, what's the chiddush here in this Braisa? Says the Gemara as follows. Ashmi'in or Reisha, the beginning of the Braisa, the Reisha explains the chiddush. Gana v'nosan la'achav v'tovach, that when you steal and you appoint a shliach to slaughter the animal, and still the mishaleach that stole it and appointed the shliach, he's going to be chayiv for the slaughtering. The yeshliach l'dvar aveda. The chiddush here is that when you appoint a shliach l'dvar aveda, the shlichus takes effect and the mishaleach is chayiv for this. Avagav the b'chol ha'Torah kula, even though usually the rule in Torah is ein shliach l'dvar aveda. There is no shliach for a dvar aveda, but here though the Gemara is going to bring the pasuk that here there is. Hacha yesh shliach l'dvar aveda. My time, because the pasuk says v'tovchay u'machrei or oymachrei, you slaughter it or you sell it, and we compared it to ma mechireh de lo yafshir de lav al yedei acher. Just like when you sell, you can't sell without a buyer, without someone else involved. Avtviche, so too when it says in the Torah slaughtering, we compare and say al yedei acher mechayev. That when you sell, or when you slaughter, that is, and even there's someone else involved, you're not slaughtering it yourself, but you sent the shliach to slaughter it, you also will be chayiv. That's the chiddush of the Reisha. Vashmina and Seife. And then the next case, what is the Braisa's chiddush? Gona v'hiktish. That if he steals the animal and he gives it to hektish, you also chayiv for this. Giving it to hektish is equivalent to selling it. Mali machre lehedyet. Because what difference does it make if you sell it to just a plain person and mali machre l'shamayim? Or over here, you're selling it, you're giving it away to hektish, to the Eibishter. It's the same thing. So therefore, you're going to be chayiv for this dalat v'hei. Zok Teilige Mishneh, Gonav b'reshus habaylam. Person stole this animal when he goes into the domain of the owner of this animal and he steals it there. So he's taking it from the reshus of the Bailam and then he takes it out of the reshus of the Bailam. So once he takes it out, he's kainet. That's the geneva that you took it out. And then v'tovach o machar chutz mireshusam. Slaughtered it or sold it to someone else outside of the reshus of the domain of the owner. Or he stole the animal outside of the reshus of the owner. The animal was somewhere in the reshus harabim and he stole it there. and however he stole it, he took it, and he made a certain kinyan to that it should be a geneva that he's taking it, and then v'tovach umachar b'rishusam, and then he went with the animal back into the private domain of the owner, but over there he slaughtered it or he sold it. So this is already after he was already kainet. He already stole it outside. So the fact that he comes back inside into the domain of the owner and there he shechts it or sells it, he's still going to be chayiv. He stole it, slaughtered it, or sold it outside of the rishus of the owner. So it's a proper geneva, and then a tvicha and mechire. So in all these cases, you pay 4 or 5 times for what you did over here. However, if you're stealing it, you're taking it, and then you're slaughtering it or selling it, but it's all still in the rishus of the bailam. So you didn't really make a proper kinyan. It's not a real geneva yet, because you're using it, you're shechting it, but it's all being done in the rishus of the owner. So there's no geneva. You slaughtered it, you mazik it. Maybe you'll be chayiv for that. But the payment of dalet v'hei, there has to be a geneva where you took it for yourself. But so if this is all happening in the property of the owner, so then you're potter to pay dalet v'hei. Now, in this case over here, he's doing all of this without making any kinyan, meaning he didn't even lift it up. Hagbah is also a kinyan, but he didn't do any hagbah either. It's all in the rishus of the owner without any kinyan of geneva, so therefore there's no dalet v'hei. So he's taking the animal, he's taking it and pulling it. He's pulling it out of the domain of the owner, and on the way out, the mace it dies. When it's still in the property of the owner. So potter is going to be potter because before it came out of his domain, it already died. So he wasn't kainet. There was no geneva before it died before he took it out. However, now even if he's still in the domain of the owner, but he lifted it up, hagbah itself is a kinyan. He already took it out of the rishus of the owner, and then umeis. Only after he took it out, and then he was kainet by taking it out, by the mashiach of taking it out, then it died. Then chayiv. Then he will be chayiv to pay for the geneva and dalet v'hei if he sold it. If this ganev tells a shliach of his, basically, he tells a kayin that I have to give you 5 slime. You have to give the 5 slime to redeem b'chayr. So you don't have to necessarily give 5 coins. You can give any other object that has the same value as these 5 coins. So he tells the kayin, go to this house, take this animal for the payment for the pidyon aben for my son. This kayin has no idea what's going on. He has no idea that this is a geneva, that it's not even his animal. And the kayin goes and he's taking it. So again, he's giving it to the kayin to redeem his firstborn son. Or he goes and tells someone that he owes money. Here, go to this rishus and go take the animal for the loan I owe you. Or the shaymer chinam, he tells a person, you'll be a shaymer for me to take this animal. Or the shayel, someone that wants to borrow, he says, here, you can borrow this animal. Neisasachar, someone that's renting. Neisasachar is a person that is a guard, like a shaymer, but he's getting paid for this. Or a seicher, or a renter. And the same thing, and now any of these people that this person appointed and said, go and take this for yourself, and he's taking it, and when he's taking it out, it already died in the rishus of the bailam before there was any kinyan, potter. So then, for this, you're going to be potter. The ganev is going to be potter for anything that was done over here because there was no kinyan before it was taken out of his property. Higbiyoi, but if the shliach that you sent and did this kinyan over here and you lifted it up, or you took it out already from the rishus of the bailam, umeis, and then it died, chayiv. Then you're going to be chayiv. So over here, when it talks about this case, chayiv and potter, it's talking about the actual chayiv for the geneva itself. It's not even talking about dalet v'hei. So over here you see that there's the Indian of shlichus, even when you get to the geneva itself. Taisus over here explains, even though the rule that we just said before, the chiddush, that the shlichus, ledvar avera, is only by tvicha and mechira, not for the geneva itself. So over here, why is the Mishnah bringing up this concept of shlichus when you get to the actual geneva itself? The answer is because over here, the shliach that you sent is not going to be responsible for this. Usually when we say, ein shliach ledvar avera, if I send another person to do an avera, you can't make the sender responsible. It's the person that's doing the avera. He chose to do this avera, and therefore it's his responsibility. But that's only if he's aware that what he's doing is an aveda. All these cases that Mishnah says over here is where the ganev is sending this person, go take this animal, and the shliach doesn't even know b'chlal that he's doing an aveda. Over here, in this case, there is a shlichus that the sender is the one that's responsible for sending him to do this. Sagt the Gemara, boy, Ameimer asked the following shaila regarding the kinyan of Meshicha. Meshicha is when you pull an animal or you hit the animal, and therefore, because of what you did, it runs and goes in a certain direction. That creates a kinyan. So Ameimer asked about this kinyan. Tiknu Meshicha b'shaimrim oiloi. Did Chachamim institute this kinyan of Meshicha regarding shaimrim as well or not? So when you give over an animal to a shaimer, to a guard, so according to most Rishonim, the shaila of the Gemara is, at what point exactly does the responsibility of the shaimer begin? That he has to safeguard this animal, and it's his responsibility what happens to it, and whatever level of a shaimer he is. Can you say that when the shaimer pulls it and does the meshicha, the act of meshicha, that's when his responsibility begins? Similar to a sale. The meshicha enacts the whole acquisition. Shall we say that the same thing is regarding guarding, a shaimer, that the meshicha itself begins his responsibility, or maybe not? Maybe by a shaimer it's different. Maybe his responsibility begins even before the meshicha, just by accepting upon himself to be a shaimer. Right away, he becomes a shaimer over it. Right, so the Gemara here is asking this question according to the opinion that says that the whole kinyan of meshicha is a takanas chachamim, which is Rav Yechanan's opinion. According to Rish Lakish, Meshicha is a kinyan in Atayra. So the Gemara wouldn't be asking such a kind of question. Over here, the Gemara is asking Tiknu. If it's a kinyan in Rabbanan, did they institute that this kinyan is effective both for a sale and for a guard to become responsible? Taisus over here says that the question of the Gemara is relevant regarding once you give it to a shaymer or a shoyel, someone that wants to borrow, at what point can he not have charata? At what point do you say that this was made up and this is done and you can't have charata anymore? That's how Taisus understands this. So the Gemara says we can learn this from what it said in our Mishnah. Omer Rav Yemer, our Mishnah said, Toshema. What did it say? If a person goes and tells someone, go take this animal for a payment for the pidyon haben, or for a bal chayv, or l'shem echinam, l'shayel, n'isasachar, l'seiche, various different cases of people that are guarding or renting or borrowing. So he's pulling it out, but it's died when it was still in the rishus of the bailim. Potter, you're going to be potter from this. So my love, shaymer. What is the Mishnah talking about? Who's the one that's pulling this animal out? The shaymer is the one that's pulling it. And what does the Mishnah say? Shma minot tiknu meshiche b'shaymer. The Mishnah is saying that when you do the meshiche, you can't do the kinyan of meshiche if you're still in the private domain of the owner. The meshiche has to be done once you take it out into the rishus harabim or usually in a simta. But in his rishus there is no meshiche. So you see in our Mishnah that at what point does he become a shaymer? When the meshiche is done. And therefore, since he's still in the rishus of the bailim and meshicha can't be done, therefore he's not a shomer yet. But if you would say that he becomes a shomer as soon as he agrees, even before the meshicha, so then why does it make a difference that it died in the rishus of bailim? He's already a shomer over it. So in our Mishnah, you see that the meshicha is the significant point of when the responsibility or the shmira begins at by shomerim. Amalei. So he answered. Rav Yemer answered and said. Who are we talking about over here? Or a Meimer answered and said that, you can't learn this necessarily from our Mishnah. Ganav. Because in our Mishnah, it's talking about the Ganav that's pulling it out. It's not talking about the Shemer. In other words, he says you can understand the Mishnah differently. In the Mishnah, what it's saying is that if the owner of this animal gave it over to a Shemer, and now it's in the Shemer's domain, and now a Ganav came and stole it from the Shemer's domain, and he was pulling it out from the Shemer's domain. That's what the Mishnah meant to say. Right? Before we understood the Mishnah that you sent a Shemer to go and take it. No, now the Gemara says, no. The Ganav himself came and took it. What's the Mishnah saying? Though that the Ganav took it from not the owner's domain, but he took it from a Shemer's domain. But what's the point? Why is the Mishnah repeating this? Hatani le'reisha. In the Reisha it spoke about when the Ganav himself is pulling and taking the animal. Because the Reisha said, Ganav the Ganav comes in and stealing it from the property, the domain of the owner. And there the Mishnah said the same thing, that he was pulling it and it died before he took it out. So it says already the same thing in the Reisha. Okay, sorry, let me just read this the Gemara again. This is all the question over here. There's a question and an answer. It says the Gemara, reflect the Gemara. Hatani le Reisha. It already says the same point in the Reisha. So here's the answer. So the Gemara answers, Tane Ganev Shagonim Beis Abailim. In the Reisha, it tells you the case where the Ganev himself comes and is pulling it and taking it from the domain of the actual owner of the animal. And Vitane, then in the Seif, it says a very similar thing. The Ganev himself also is coming and taking it, but where is he taking it from? Shagonim Beis Shomer. He's taking it from the house of a Shomer. But we don't have to say that we're talking about a Shomer that's taking it from the house of the owner. That's how Amema said that you can learn our Mishnah. Amalei Ravashi said to Amema, Loi titche. Don't push off, don't reject over here this proof that Rav Yema brought from a Mishnah. Because still the question remains. The Mishnah is repeating something and there's no reason for this redundancy. Mali ganev shegonav mi beis shomer, mali ganev shegonav mi beis bailam. What difference does it make whether he's stealing it from the owner himself or from someone else that takes the place of the owner, which is the shomer? If it's the ganev himself that's doing the act, it's the same thing. Elalav shomer. So as we learned in the beginning, simple pshat here is that the seif of the Mishnah is talking about a shomer that's pulling the animal. And we can prove, as Rav Yemer said, tiknu meshicha b'shomrim, that Chachamim instituted this kinyan of meshicha, that it applies to a shomer as well. Shma mina, this is a proof.
Even in the domain from
the owner, yeah. That's that's what the Mishnah is saying. You pull it, you take it out of his reshus, the meshicha takes effect. But if it's still in his reshus, the meshicha did not take effect. Itmanami, we learned this as well, and that Omer Rabbi Lazar also said, just like the kinyan of Meshicha applies to a sale, kach tiknu Meshicha b'shemrim. So too, Meshicha is what puts into effect the shmira, the guarding. Tanya Nami Hach in a Braisa, we learned as well, the exact same point. And then the Braisa has another thing, just like you acquire a piece of land through either money or a document that's written that you're selling this land, or chazakeh, when you do something in the land, you fix something, or put up a wall, or fix it, so that's a chazakeh that creates a kinyan. Kach schiros, so to a rental, niknis bekesef b'shtar b'chazakeh. You could also acquire in one of these three ways, kesef shtar chazakeh. So the Gemara now explains what kind of a rental are we talking about. Schiros demai. What rental? Ilem is schiros the metaltalin. Is it, Bryce doesn't make any distinctions. Do you think that this is also talking about a rental of any movable items that you can acquire in these three ways, kesef, shtar, or chazakeh, metaltali, b'nei, shtaraninu? Can you acquire a metaltalin through a shtar? You can't acquire through a shtar. Actually, he brings the way to acquire metaltalin is, as we said before, is with meshicha. And even with kesef, usually you can't acquire with kesef. But if you pay, and then the owner doesn't give you he goes back on the sale, and so there is, to some degree, the sale has there is some koyach to the kesef here. Rashi brings us a thing called mishapara. Once you paid for something, even if it's not a full acquisition, but you have to follow through with the sale. But stam writing a shtar that I sell you this and this item, this movable item, just writing a document for that doesn't do anything. So that can't be what the Braisa meant. It's talking about the rental of a property, of a house, or whatever it is, that you could, the rental, just like a sale, is just with a document, with a shtar. Rabbi Lazar said, this is going back now to the Indian of paying dalad v'hei, a ganev. So just before we go into the Gemara here, the point the Gemara is going to focus on is this whole halacha that we're learning throughout this entire perek about paying dalad v'hei when you steal and then slaughter or sell this animal is only by a ganev and not by a gazlan. What's the general difference between a ganev and a gazlan? A ganev is a person that comes in hiding. A gazlan is someone that comes by force openly and grabs and steals from you. So here the Gemara will address this distinction and explain how we define the difference between a ganev and a gazlan. Rabbi Lazar said, Ra'uhu shehitmin b'chorshin. You see a person that's hiding in a forest where all kinds of shepherds are there with their animals, and this person is hiding out over there in this forest to steal an animal. And v'tavach machar, and he grabs an animal and he slaughters it or sells it. Mishalem tashlumei arba v'chamisha. So for what he did, he stole it and then he slaughtered it or sold it, he's going to have to pay arba v'chamisha. So the Gemara addresses this, two things. First of all, the question is, why should he have to pay for the Geneva? Halei mashach. If you just read the statement of Rabbi Lazar says, it sounds like Rabbi Lazar saying the person is there and he's hiding and he waits to find an animal that's there in the forest that's owned by someone, and he grabs it and he shechts it right there without any meshicha. He didn't do an act of Geneva first, like we just learned in the Mishnah. The first has to be an act of Geneva. Only following that, if you shecht it, you'd be chayiv. Rav Chisda says, no, what he meant is he did do an act of Meshicha. He did do a Geneva. Why? Shekisha b'makal, he hit it with a stick, and that's Meshicha. Meshicha is either you pull it or you hit it with a stick and it runs. So he did a Geneva. But now there's another question on this. Omri, they said, the question on this though still is, Viki vindira uhu. But since this person is seen, he's there in the forest, and they see how he's coming and he's grabbing an animal and he's hitting it and he's taking the animal and he's shechting it, and all the shepherds are there in the forest. So what he's doing seems to be in an open manner. If so, gazlanhu. He's defined as a gazlan, not as a ganav. He's not disguising himself. He's coming and he's grabbing the animal and people see him. So this is called a gazlan. So Rashi here clarifies a point about this, that every ganav, he has to be seen by somebody. If he's not seen by anybody, so then you'll never be able to obligate him to pay dalet vehei or to pay kefil. You have to have edim that saw him. But still, even by a regular ganav, even though he's seen by somebody, he's still called a ganav, because who sees him? Not the owner. Other people see him. That's still called a ganav, because if the owner would see you, you would be embarrassed, you would be careful, you wouldn't go and steal, because the owner would fight back, or whatever it is, you're afraid of the owner. The fact that other people are seeing you, that doesn't bother the ganav so much, and he still gets the name ganav. Here, we're talking about this gazlan that is in the forest, in a place where there's a lot of different people with the shepherds that are here with their animals, and you're exposed to all kinds of people, and the animal that you're stealing, you don't know if the owner is watching you or not, because you don't even know who the owner is exactly and whose animals there are. There's a lot of people there, and still he's going and he's stealing. That, says the Gemara, you're allowing yourself to be exposed even by the owner of the animal. You're a gazlan. If you're a gazlan, you don't pay kefil, you don't pay dalet vehei. Says the Gemara, no, the way this person is going about it, he's still called a ganav, because kivin de kametamri minayu ganavu. Since he's hiding here in the forest and he's coming and stealing, so even though then he's seen, but nevertheless he's not coming openly by force and grabbing. He's hiding and finding an opportunity to come and take and grab and steal. So even though he's being seen, nevertheless, this kind of behavior fits more to the description of a ganav, of a person that hides when he steals. Says the Gemara, so ve'ela gazlan hechidami. So what is the description? How do we define a gazlan? Amar Rabavo, says Rabavo, kogoin b'niyo ben yoyada. It's like what it says in the pasuk regarding b'niyo ben yoyada. Shenema, the pasuk here says, vayigzal as a chanis miyad hamitzri vayargei b'chanisai. When you come openly, confront the person, and by force he grabbed out the spear from the hand of the mitzri and he killed him. So when you come mamish openly, directly, and grab, that's what's called a gazlan. Or another source, Rabbi Yechanan Omar Kagoyim, Balei Shechem, the people of Shechem, where it says there in the pasuk that they rebelled against Avimelech, Shenema, the pasuk that says, Vayisimulu Balei Shechem Ha'arvim, the Balei Shechem, the people of Shechem, they created an ambush al Roshi Aharim by the mountains, Vayigzelu Eskola Sheyaver Aleim Badarach, and then they came and they attacked and stole from everyone that passed through over there in the way. So over there also they came by force and grabbed. Now the Gemara explains there's two different psukim that were brought here. V'Rabavo, my time alayama mehai. Why didn't Rabavo bring from here, from this second pasuk? Amalach, he'll tell you, kivin the metamri itmuri, over there, the way the pasuk describes it, by the people of Shechem, they hid to create an ambush. And then, then they came and grabbed. But because initially they're hiding, that's still not described as a gazlan. A gazlan is a person that doesn't hide at all. He comes directly, openly, and grabs. But Rabbi Yechanan, that does quote from this pasuk, he's trying to say, no, Adarabba, that even this case is called a gazlan. Hadakam tamri, because over there, the fact that they're hiding is the loy mechzinu inshiv in arkaminai. It's to create an ambush in order that the people should not run away from them. But not that they're afraid. You have to make the distinction. Sometimes a person hides because he's afraid. That's why he's hiding. Over here, they weren't hiding because they're afraid. They're hiding because they wanted to create an ambush, and then they'll come out and they'll be able to grab openly and directly without any fear. So therefore, this is still called a gazlan. That's why Rabbi Yechanan brought dafka from this pasuk to make this point. Okay, so we have here this distinction of the ganav and the gazlan. As I mentioned, a ganav is not, a ganav pays kefil, dal vehei, all these knossos the Torah says. A gazlan does not. A gazlan just pays back what he stole. So here the Gemara explains the reason for this difference. Shal Talmid of Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai, Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai's students asked him, why was the Torah so much more stringent with the Ganev, with all of these penalties, more than the Gazlan? So he answered them as follows. Zeh, the Gazlan, Hishva, Koved Eved, Lekoved Kainai. to him, the honor of the servant is equal to the honor of the master, which means that he's in this case, is actually not afraid of another human being. He's coming and grabbing and stealing openly, and he's also not afraid of Hashem. The Eibishter says not to steal, he's not, so in his eyes, he's not afraid of both of them in the same way. But v'zeh, a ganav is actually worse. Lo yishva kavod eved lekavod kohen. He doesn't compare in his mind. The kavod of the servant is not the same as the kavod of the master. The kavod of a human being, he's concerned about, or he's afraid of a human being. So therefore he comes in hiding. But from the Eibishter, he's not afraid. The Eibishter sees him anyways, and he's not afraid. So in his eyes, he has more fear of a human being than the Eibishter. That's much worse. Kaviyachol, asa ayin shal mata, so to speak. He turns the eye below, which over here, it means really it's going on the Eibishter. The Eibishter's eye above, kilo ein araya, the Eibishter does not see, v'oizen shal mata, the ear is below, the Eibishter's ear is above, kilo ein shamas, he doesn't hear me. Right, so a person that's completely, he's not fearful. He doesn't have Yiras Shamayim, but he's not afraid of people. He's not afraid of the Eibishter. That's one level of lack of Yiras Shamayim. But when it's to such a point where the person, he's afraid of people, so he has fear in him, but he still is not afraid of the Eibishter at the same time, that's much worse. That's where the Torah gives all these knossos of Kefil and Dalet V'Hei. And the Gemara here brings a few different psukim about this. Shenema, one pasuk says, Hoi hamamikim me'Hashem. Those people that go in depths to hide themselves, laster, eitzah, to hide their devices, their plans from the Eibishter. V'hoi b'machshach masei v'geimer. They do their actions in hiding, in dark. It's one pasuk. Ksiv, a second pasuk. V'yomru, people say, lo yireka, the Eibishter doesn't see, v'lo yavan l'kei Yaakov. Doesn't understand what I'm doing. Uksiv, a third pasuk, it says, Ki Amru, they say, Ozav Hashem es haaretz, ve'ein Hashem rayeh. The Eibishter left the land and he doesn't see what I'm doing over here. So the Gemara here brings 3 psukim. It's not stam 3 different psukim. There's a sicha from the Rebbe Barichas in Chelik Tezayim, Parshas Mishpatim. Long sicha on this whole Gemara and the whole continuation of the Gemara here as well. The Rebbe there explains the 3 different psukim. It's different stages of the person not realizing and not believing the presence of the Eibishter in the world. The problem begins when a person thinks that the Eibishter is so great, he's so holy, he's so unlimited. Umamela, here in our physical world, in the little tiny action that I'm doing over here, the Eibishter is present, he cares about what I'm doing over here, also vavaya. It starts from a place where the person thinks that the Eibishter is so great, and Mamela has no shaykhs to me. But then it goes lower, the person comes to the point where he creates a disconnect between him and the Eibishter, and therefore that's the idea of a ganav. A ganav, things that he relates to, people, that he relates to, the world that he lives in, that's what he's afraid of. But the Eibishter, that he says, the Eibishter is in a different reality, in a different world, and he doesn't have a shaykhs to me here below. So the Rebbe explains in the Sikha the different aspects, the different levels of how a person creates this disconnect between Oir and Chayshech, what the Eibishter sees and what he does not see, and until he comes to the point where he says, Ozav Avaya. The Eibishter is, he leaves, he's not present. The Hashkacha Pratis of the Eibishter is not present here in this world. Huh? No, but it's not to the same extent though. Not to say the Gazlan could be he's a very very brazen person. He's a big chutzpah and he has a taiva and he goes and he grabs. Over here, the Ganev, he's afraid of people. He's not this chutzpah. He's afraid of people and he knows that there's an Eibishter and he's and nevertheless, Hagam is afraid. He goes and he's digging the machteres and he goes and makes a plan of how he's going to steal from people. It's a different thing. Over here, this is a cheshbon that the person has a wrong hashkafa, that the person is creating this disconnect between him and the Eibishter. That you don't have by a Gazlan necessarily. A Gazlan is stam, a wild person comes and steals. Sagt the Gemara, Tanya in a Braise we learned. More to take out this to Tanya over here. Amar Rab Meir said, Mashlu, they gave the following mashal, Mishum Rab Gamliel, in the name of Rab Gamliel. Lama David Daime. If you want to understand the difference between a Ganav and a Gazlan, you can give the following mashal. Shnei b'nei Yadam shayu be'ir, 2 people living in a city, v'asu mishteh, and they make a big festive meal. Echad zimenes b'nei Yair, 1 person invited the people of the city, v'lei zimenes b'nei Melech. But he did not invite the most prominent people that deserve to be invited, the children of the king, the princes. Them he didn't invite. But then there's another person, he doesn't invite his friends in the city, and he doesn't invite the king's the children as well. Which one of them gets a much harsher punishment? So you can understand here in this mashal, he's showing that he's making this party and he's inviting all of his friends and all the important people of the city. But and he still doesn't invite the Bnei HaMelech, the people, the most prominent people, the Bnei HaMelech. That's where the person deserves an einish, a much greater einish than the other person that didn't invite anybody. He's not inviting anybody. He's making a party. He's enjoying himself, and he doesn't invite anybody. I'm enjoying myself now. That's what the Gazlan is all about. The Gazlan is a person. He's enjoying himself. He steals. He grabs. He takes. He's not thinking about other people. He's not thinking about the Eibush. He's not thinking about anybody. But the Ganev, he's calculating. Well, he's making a meal. I have to invite the important people of the city. They're my friends, and he still doesn't invite the Bnei HaMelech himself. That's already showing that the disconnect between him and the Eibush is much deeper. The lack of Yiras Shamayim is much deeper in his head. So that's where the Torah gives a completely different kind of the knossos that the Torah says. The Rebbe here also speaks about this Gemara. The Rebbe says different Ramazim. In this story here, it talks about a Mishteh. The Mishteh and the Bnei HaMelech. The Rebbe teaches this there in the Sikha. They're here, we're talking about by the Ganev when he's coming to do tshuva already. The Rebbe proves over there in the Sikha from the Hemshech of the Gemara that we're talking about the Ganev once he's already in Bezdin. And now that's when the Bezdin is saying that he has to pay back, and he has to pay back the kefil and dal v'heis. We're talking about the Ganev when he's coming to do tshuva. Once the Ganev is coming to do tshuva, that's where the Gemara calls it a mishteh. The Alter Rebbe, the famous thing the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya regarding a person that's coming and does tshuva or a skafia, hapche, the Alter Rebbe calls it matamen. When you have delicacies that when you spice something up, which was first negative, and you spice it up that it should have a good, positive taste. So here, the Gemara uses this term of a mishteh to be meramis to this Indian, the Ganav that's doing tshuva. And the Rebbe also says, when you get to Bnei HaMelech, that the reason why he doesn't invite the Bnei HaMelech is because he says that it's only Bnei HaMelech. If it's not the Eibishter himself in the world, what's the mistake of the Ovdei Avodah Zarah? The Ovdei Avodah Zarah say that the Eibishter appointed other powers in nature to be mediums, to be mashpia in the world. But the Eibishter himself removed himself. The same mistake of before. Ozav Avayas Haaretz. That's what the idea of Bnei HaMelech is. That the Eibishter himself is the Melech, and then there's the Bnei HaMelech. It says, okay, so it's only Bnei HaMelech, but the Eibishter is not here, so therefore I don't have to invite them. That's the Ramazim the Rebbe says. Right to the Gemara says, Omer Rab Meir said, Bo Yirei Kama Godel Koyach Shel Melacha. Regarding the difference that the Torah says in the payment of Dalet Vehei, right? So when you steal a sheep, you pay 4 times as much. Or again, if you steal a ox, that is, you pay 4 times as much. If you steal a sheep, you pay 5 times as much. What's the reason for the difference? So Rav Meir says, come and see how great malacha is, work. Shebitloi mimelachtai. That, again, I skipped one word of here. Malacha shel shei. How great is the need for the work that you can use the ox for, it can plow in the field and so on. That when you steal the ox, you pay an extra time, a 5th time, because you took away the work that it could do. Chamisha, so you pay 5 times as much. But if you steal a sheep, shaloi bitla mimalachta, you're not taking away the ability for it to do any work. Arba, over here you pay only 4 times as much. Okay, so that's Rab Meir's approach. So here, Rab Meir is focusing on the bittul malacha of what the person you stole it from loses out. Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai, he focuses more on the Ganav himself. Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai says, Kama Godel Kavod Abrius. Look and see how great is the honor that the Eibusha gives to people. And even here, this person, there's a Ganav. When this person stole the ox, so the ox walks with itself. You're not carrying an ox too heavy. The ox walks itself. So therefore, when he stole it, and he didn't get embarrassed by doing this, that he was schlepping this ox and carrying it, chamisha. So he has to pay 5 times as much. The when he stole it, so he was schlepping it on his own shoulders. And Rashi says he embarrassed himself here, arba. So for this, he pays 4 times as much. The Rebbe actually in the Sikha brings regarding this as well, that this last point over here is, this Ganav, when he's stealing, the Mefarshim already point this out. We said before, the Ganav is someone that does these things in hiding. He's not like really embarrassing himself publicly. He's not even being seen at all. So really the embarrassment here is a very, very little embarrassment. Maybe this Adam didn't see it. But even that, he doesn't even necessarily notice these Adam. But the embarrassment comes out when he comes to the Bezdin later. And the story is said in Bezdin of what the person did. So the story, the way it's said in Bezdin, that this person stole an ox, or this person stole a seh, so the story is more embarrassing regarding the fact that he stole a seh than the fact that he stole a shor. So the difference of the embarrassment is pretty minute because we're only talking about how the story about what he did is being repeated. And that's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says. Gadol kavod habriyos. Even though the difference between them seems to be so minimal, nevertheless, we see that in the Torah, kavod habriyos is so important, and therefore there's such a big difference. And here you pay 4 times as much, and here you pay 5 times as much. That brings also that the Gemara says in Brachos regarding Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that he was very careful with kavod habriyos. The Gemara there says that there was nobody that was ever makdim shalom before to him. No one ever greeted Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai before he greeted them. He always greeted everybody before they had a chance to greet him. And the Gemara there says, Afilo Nachri, even a guy, he always greeted everybody before he greeted him. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that says this, he himself and his behavior did this inyan of kavod habriyos in a very, very strong way.